I will now, for the first, call on one of our most important experts and witnesses, Raji Sourani. I will ask him to stick to about 20 minutes, and I will also remind him that his message exists written out in our documents. Therefore, he doesn't need in any way to read it. It will be known by people who will read our documents when they're coming out. But I will be very glad to have him speak about the first part of our tribunal, the setting the legal context, the Palestinian right to self-determination. Mr. Sourani will explain the content of the right, the nature of its denial in the Palestinian context, and its relation to apartheid and persecution. Mr. Sourani, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is one of my hardest missions ever in life, to speak after Archbishop Desmond Tutu. I'm moved, touched deeply, and I think all who know what suffering, suppression, oppression of human being means would have the same feeling. And I think we have the first honest, first-hand eyewitness who have been at that part of the world, met the people, ordinary. He lived with them a few days, shared them food, life, stories, and saw by his own eyes what had happened at that part of the world. South Africa, Cape Town, bringing the fourth dimension of this tribunal. It's unique, special, politically, legally, historically, to be in this place and to have such a tribunal. We are honored as Palestinians, as representatives of victims, but not only that, as freedom fighters, to be in this part of the world in such time. We are suffering the peak of the suppression, oppression of Daniel, of our basic fundamental right, not right of self-determination as such, which is the foundation of the entire rights, but right of life, right of medical health, right of food, right of movement. After 63 years, I think Palestinians came to unprecedented ever situation in their history. We are at one of our darkest moments where international community be held accountable and punished because they are voting for Palestine to be member at the UNESCO as such. Right of self-determination do have two basic components legally. Equal political participation and free, equal right of development and the social, economical, cultural rights, as well as the right of full control of resources. Needless to say that the Palestinian right of self-determination has been stated and confirmed many, many times in hundreds of UN resolutions, as well the International Court of Justice. And the problem never was, and it is, in that. It is in the practice of this Israeli belligerent occupation, the Israeli criminal occupation, who's not denying self-determination as such, but denying basic, fundamental human rights as well. Related to political participation, as you are aware, Palestinian people split over. None of them outside the occupied territories. Millions are refugees across the globe in diaspora for 63 years. I have no solution for their problem whatsoever. Absolute Daniel. And people in Gaza, totally isolated, suffocated, with a criminal, inhumane, illegal siege. In Jerusalem, completely isolated. No access to it, back and forth. Even for praying. West Bank, different story. Swiss cheese piece, disconnected, Bundesland, and fragmented. So even the very existence of Palestinian people as unity, it's not there. When we made our elections, which was, and we are proud of, real, democratic, transparent, and the international community witnessed that, we were punished. Punished. Our people has been punished because we were Democrats. We don't deserve to be Democrats. Only this criminal apartheid state deserves to be recognized as the oasis of democracy in the Middle East. Our people made it, made democracy under occupation, and we delivered. This image should be destroyed. We are only recognized as terrorists. In the West Bank, severe resources, water and land, two simple issues, two basic, fundamental things. Israel controls 80% not of its water, but of West Bank land. Settler, the Israeli settler, have 300 liters a day. Palestinian do have 20 liters a day. C'est unfair. Land in a very systematic way with full legal political cover and support and facilities, with financial support by the State of Israel. Settlements are flourishing, expanding vertically, horizontally, new settlements every day. It's not only that, it's connecting the entire settlements in the West Bank with the Israeli cities, and Bundesland ghettoizing the entire Palestinian cities and villages in a strategical way, strangling them making them unable to expand or have any leverage to expand in the future. We wanted justice, redress, dignity for the victims. That's why we resorted to the Israeli legal system. I'm 35 years working as a lawyer, dealing in representation of Palestinian victims. I'm proud that I won 17 cases in all my life. This legal system provides full legal cover for organized war crimes, systematic war crimes perpetrated against civilians. Last Gaza criminal offense 2008-2009, we represented 149 victims in 490 cases. 2 has been tried. 1 for theft of credit card, and the other for using human shield, 6-month imprisonment. Shame. Shame to have legal system providing such cover for organized crime. Not only that, torture legal, deportation legal, administrative detention legal. I'll try to summarize and conclude. And I want to say that in the path of working on the right of self-determination, we are trying all our best to highlight the denial of basic fundamental rights of the Palestinian people in the occupied territories. And we want to convey simple message. Right of self-determination is the cornerstone of the foundation of the new international legal system. Palestinian people are entitled for this right. The systematic denial of practicing this and making the Palestinian people life rather mission impossible, it's not helping and getting anywhere. We will keep, with all these odds, difficulties, suppression, oppression, our moral superiority on this criminal occupation. We, with all odds, have no right to give up. Bishop Tutu, we are the stones of the valley. Nobody will remove us from that part of the world. We will be there as we have been ever. And we, as the South Africa made, all the free committed people shall overcome, and one day we will do practice that, hopefully soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sourani, the director of the Palestinian Center for Human Rights. Your contribution raises perhaps a question from a member of the jury May I turn to members of the jury if anyone wished to put a question to Mr. Sourani?
Yes, I got one.
You do. Mr. Mansfield, you have the floor.
Is this on or not?
No.
No, press it. I haven't pressed it.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How's that? Yes, fine. A very quick question, but it's on everybody's lips. And that is the relationship between the concept of self-determination, as you've been talking, and the current bid by the Palestinian people at the United Nations for statehood. How do you see that relationship and how it's being argued?
I think President Abbas put it rightly at the UN, and he stated two things. One, that all these negotiations are leading to nowhere. And as somebody who's committed for negotiations and peace for the last 40 years devoted of his life, when he come to that conclusion, that's very hard. And he passed the message to the international community. What's the alternative? Should we be a good victim? We are entitled for a state, and that's our right, and we have to practice it. International community should do something. I think the uploading at the UN was a clear-cut voting by international community, expressed and materialized at the UNESCO, where the entire international community, the overwhelming majority in support of this. Now, to come to the ground, of course, this practice, for me, very virtually practice. I mean, this is not going to remove the occupation, definitely. Facts on the ground, so hard, so tough, we cannot do it ourselves forcibly to have an end for this occupation, even if this has been voted. But the Kafka thing, that, you know, quite a lot of bargain began to happen with the PA. Like, well, listen, we can give you, I mean, a state position at the General Assembly and not a state member if you don't ratify the ICC, meaning you cannot hold accountable Israel on settlements and war crimes they perpetrated. Which is, I mean, so confusing. I mean, once and again. I think UN, expressed by her learned president, who's a scholar and a graduate of Columbia School of Law, and he knows what means the Daniel of Palestinian right of self-determination and not to having Palestinian state. That means he supports the occupation, he supports the belligerent occupation, he supports the war crimes, he supports what Israel is doing against the entire Palestinian civilians as war crimes and crimes against humanity at that part of the world. So for me, as somebody who's living in the ground and living the day-to-day realities, as I said before, we need much, much less than that now. We need right of life, right of movement, right of education, right of health. These basic fundamental rights, we don't have it. And as it has been stated rightly, people cannot decide what they are going to have, to eat or to dress or to do. The Israeli occupation decide on that with the Apache, with the F-16s, with the cannons, with the gunboats from the ship. But that's, I mean, the realities of what's going on. So when President Abbas addressed that, of course, it's absolutely legitimate right for us, and we want that right to be practiced. Realities on the ground suggest that there is more imminent direct things should be happening with the human beings at that part of the world.
Thank you. May I have one question to Mr. Sourani? Do you have the feeling that after the 2008-2009 caste-led business, the situation in Gaza was very much the one that the judge, South African Judge Goldstone, described, or do you think there was a great difference then?
1.8 million people in Gaza Strip living under absolute siege, life absolutely paralyzed. That brought up, due to the closure and social economical suffocation, to 65% unpaid or unemployed, and 90% under poverty line. We, at that part of the world, have the highest percent on earth of university graduates. We have very strong, skilled, professional, working class. We have wonderful business community, and we have the capital. Only one thing we don't have: opportunity. Opportunity to act as a human being and to invest our humanity at that part of the world. Israel didn't satisfy with that, and they turned Gaza to be sort of animal zoo. International community shamefully dumping some food and medicine and practice the conspiracy of silence on what's going on that part of the world. As you know, Article 1, it doesn't give privilege, it gives legal obligation. Article 1 of the 4th Geneva Convention on the high contracting parties to ensure respect of protecting civilians. This is not happening. Worse, Israel launched this criminal offense on Gaza. In the eye of the storm of this offense, there were the civilian targets. Universities, public offices, schools, hospitals, orphanage, elderly houses, UNRWA headquarters, the strategical storage of food and medicine at UNRWA headquarters was bombarded at the time Secretary General was with the Minister of Defense of Israel. It's not that what we are saying. This is what Human Rights Watch, Amnesty, ICJ, FDH, Euromed Human Rights Network, Palestinian Israeli Human Rights Organization documented legally. All this was at the desk of Goldstone. He saw it. He talked to the witnesses. He talked to the victims. He talked to the human rights activists, UN, international organization. He have it all. Since then till today, I can assure you one thing: the siege is still intact, the suffocation is still there, and still the smell of death and destruction in Gaza streets, and still the situation worse than it has been 2009. But people will not be good victims.
Thank you. I now turn to Mr. Catherine for a question.
Thank you, Chair. I am mindful of the time factor. So just a very quick question, and perhaps a quick answer. I just want to return to the question of the right of self-determination of people. And we are well aware that 20% of Israel's population are Palestinians, 1.6 million people. How do you see the right of self-determination relating to these people? And of course, the Palestinians living inside of Israel from before and since 1948 have often been a forgotten people. So that's the question, the right of self-determination, how it relates to that. Thank you.
Well, I think when we are talking about Palestinian people, we are talking about Palestinian people all over the place. In diaspora, as refugees, in Gaza, West Bank, including Jerusalem, and Palestinians inside Israel. Who nobody, ask them, what's your fate or destiny? Palestinian PLO in 1965, in the charter, they stated they want one Palestinian state for Jewish, Muslims, and Christians. Ulf Palma said in 74 to President Arafat, well, listen, nobody will interpret that rightly. Everybody, interpret that as equal to destroy the state of Israel. You should act rightly, behavely, and you have to say two-state solution. Then everybody, would support that. Bruno Kreisky gave a big push for that. President Arafat, 74, recognized two-state solution as PLO position. Ulf Palma shortly has been killed, not by Palestinians. Then also accords happened, and we were supposed to be entitled for our state in May 4th, 1999. And late Rabin gave this promise to President Arafat. So things worked, and late Rabin was assassinated, definitely not by a Palestinian. And where we are now, in the nowhere and in the worst situation ever in our history. Never ever in the Israeli political history, one official said, sorry, we victimized Palestinians, we are responsible, we are this or that. And all what's going about that the Palestinians should recognize, the state of Israel existence, etc. Of course, when the time comes, people, individuals, or as a group, should decide about their fate, destiny. I have no ready recipe. If there will be peace, I think that will be based in very equal opportunities for individuals and people, and that means Israel should stop practicing apartheid within itself vis-à-vis the Palestinian people inside Israel. They have been there before the state, and they have been already now, living there and existing there. And I don't think, any can make them as part of deal to take them out and bring the purity to the Jewish state of Israel. And we be helping in making Israel more racist than it is existing right now. So that's, related to the Palestinians inside Israel as such.
Thank you very much. I think we have to move on. I want to thank Mr. Sourani. I'm sure he could answer a number of questions that are still in our mind, but I think we have to turn to the next session. And I now call on Alice.
May I just,
yes?
One final word. I have been here in 2001 at the World Conference Against Racism. And at this conference, there was attending almost 1,700 international NGOs across the globe, African, Latino, European, Asian. And at this conference, there was a document, and a clear-cut way stated, Israel denying Palestinian right of self-determination, Israel state of apartheid, Israel racist, and Israel practicing war crimes. I hope this document, which represented just days before September 11th, being part of this tribunal document. Thank you.